and everything all lined up so I could be on this in multiple places. Yay for technology. So it is the first Friday of August. I can't believe it. I don't know where you are in your life, in your world right now, but I am amazed that it is August already and that it's the first Friday of August, which means, of course, ta-da, we are here live for Ask the Oracle Live. And today I have a topic I want to share. I've been talking about it all week, and there's been some questions coming in around it. So I wanted to start there. And then, of course, if anybody is here live who would like to leave me a question, you are more than welcome to do that. I'm going to go ahead and do the whole, there we go. There I am. Okay, cool. This is what I wanted. I wanted to be able to see all of you. So we're going to do that here. Open that live. Ta-da. There we go. Around it, so I wanted to. All right. Don't need to hear it though. There we go. All right. So first and foremost, as I was saying, it's August 1st, the first Friday of August. And so what has been going on in the world this last week, I think, and even in the last few months, of course, has brought a lot of people questioning about the stamina they might have or might not have around what the continuing unfoldment of our world looks like, especially here in the United States. And what does that have to do with how they show up in the work and that they do and the real work that they're meant to do? And I know that several of the people that have asked questions over the last week, the questions have been around just that. Like how do we stay where we are, right? Stay focused on what we need to be doing and acknowledge the way things have changed, and whether you want to call it the new normal or you feel like you continue to get the rug pulled out from underneath you. That feels like you. Raise your hand. Like just when you think you have whatever the new normal is under your belt, we round a corner and there's a new version of the new normal that you have to deal with. So what does that have to do with purpose? What does it have to do with knowing what your real work is in the world? And how can you use the tool of understanding what your purpose is to navigate the quote unquote changes of normal that keep happening? I think that part of the answer lies in the fact that if you really do understand what your true purpose is, then you can look to that as a barometer for how you show up in any situation at any time. And you've probably, if you've been watching me for a moment, have seen me celebrating this year, this month especially, the way that my own business has developed this year as a positive, has increased. My revenue has increased. My quality of connection has increased. And I believe a big portion of that is because so many people are indeed wanting to understand and look for the connection to their own purpose and how that can really show up in the world. I was speaking to someone recently about this, and the question was, how does this play out with the purpose and whatever you want to call it, COVID, pandemic, whatever makes you comfortable, it doesn't matter to me, the changes that are going on. And my answer was this: when people are feeling like there's a sense that life is finite, right? That they are coming to face mortality, which part of what's going on is pointing that out to people. Life is precious and life is short. The being present to what they were meant to deliver, being present to what has been calling out inside of them to offer the world becomes more heightened, and everything is more heightened. So of course, it makes sense that would be as well. So if you find yourself, frustrated or confused or anxious about how you can both be here now, right, and look to the future, You're not alone. You're absolutely not alone. And that's the first thing to hopefully not hold on to, but to recognize is that you are not alone in this space. Many people, for a myriad of reasons, are starting to look at what their life looks like and making choices differently. And by differently, I mean they're talking about things that in the grander scheme, if you will, matter more, right, than just holding on to a job or holding on to an opportunity for the money. Now, people are going to say, you're a purpose and prosperity coach. Why would you say not to worry about the money? And I'm not saying not to worry. Actually, I am saying not to worry. I'm simply saying that priorities are shifting. Whether or not that means your life is shifting, priorities are shifting. So, while my topic today really is about that, like, what is it like when in the midst of everything going on around you, you can stay aligned with your purpose and still focus positively on what the future holds? What is that like? And so I've been talking about for myself this last year and the clients that I'm working with and celebrating them, because that's exactly what we're doing. Hey, Cindy, nice to see you. Thanks for joining us today. So I'm just talking about some of the questions that have kind of come up over the last few weeks, but a reminder to those of you who I see you popping in and out, if you do have a question that you'd like to ask the Oracle today live, you can do it here in the comments. I don't know what the comments are on the screen down below, I think. You can do that now, and in a moment we'll start getting to those questions. So Cindy or whomever else is watching, thanks for watching. And also just remember, you can post your questions here live. You can post them today, even if you're watching the replay. And my guarantee, my promise to you is that I will get back to everyone that does that by the end of business today. So great. Cindy says she'd love to ask a question. So yeah, go ahead and post your questions in the comments. I think I can see them over here better. So, and I just want to add one more piece to this original question that I started with, which is, how do we hold our intention and focus on our purpose when in the midst of a changing world, right? Let's just call it changing world. And so it's not so much how do we, but I think, again, the point is to make it a priority to stay aligned, right? Because the alignment to your purpose, to understanding, like finding, following, and knowing what it is, helps us to then look at what's happening around us and decide, how do we show up to that? How do we show up to, the challenges, the racial challenges? How do we show up to the emotional changes of, what quarantine or semi-quarantine or whatever version of that you're living in, that difference? And how do we show up in the world, in our business, to serve people when maybe the way we were doing it before is no longer valid or working? So once we know what we're meant to deliver, then the question becomes, how do we deliver that in light of what's happening in the world? How do we show up to care and nurture and bring to bear the thing that is ours to bring? I, of course, always continue to say, there is no accident. Any of us are giving from a place that is meant to be given of us. Like, it's ours to do. It's our work, right? Our real work. So it's not an accident if you find yourself in a situation that you're there, that what you have to offer is being asked of you in that moment, right? It's important to know that. So it's not to say that this time or this way or this place changes any of that. It simply gives you a new perspective, right? Shines a new light on how you might best deliver what it is you have to offer the world. And so one of the comments I was talking about this week too was the idea of doing hard things. And the hard things can look like being vulnerable, showing up, sharing a message when you're not sure how it will be received, right? Asking for business from someone that you know you can help. Holding space for a client when they're in their own version of fear or confusion or anxiety, and knowing and holding their vision higher for them so that they can sit in that space of awareness and grow into that. So those are all things that can feel hard, right? Knowing your truth and sharing it boldly. I have a client that, one of the things that we came upon for him as a leader, that he recognized that his role, his ultimate role, right, his unique life purpose was to be a leader of leaders. And when we came to that realization together, when we were working together, he lit up. It resonated like on a cellular level with him. And yet it took a months before he had to step into that place in a way that validated it. Right. So we don't always know when the validation will appear. But we do know, or I do know after all these years, and I did share with him that sense of understanding that he had when he could step back into it in any given moment, then what he would deliver from that place would be exactly what was needed at that time. Cindy says, curious what O has to say for us. We are supporting. So let's talk about, so Cindy's got a question. So we're going to read the question. It's not showing up in here, so I'm looking over here. Let me pull this over this way. Might be less distracting for you guys. Okay. So Cindy says, what is the next step my partner and girlfriend and I should do to get our business growing amidst personal transition? She's going through some big transitions which have slowed down the progress and growth. I think this kind of talks about what we were just talking about. So it's kind of interesting that of course, that the universe has brought you this question and in this moment. She also said we are supporting LGBTQ women with sexual empowerment and healing, creating a global community around joy and pleasure. So thank you first and foremost for showing up and asking a question, right? So bringing your question here to the space. The first part of your question, so you have like the two sections here. The first part of your question brought to mind that it's this concept we have. And so O is kind of chuckling as she can sometimes about our humanity, that we put these timelines on things as if we know like when the moment is going to come. And just as I was saying about my other client, that, getting clearer about his purpose allowed him to be ready when the time was right, right? So it's about being prepared now in the moment to deliver when the timing is right. Like everything that you guys are both going through, by the way, she's saying, though everything you are both going through is part of the preparation for being ready when the time is right. And that your moments, to acknowledge your moments, because when your moments are needed to be reflected back, they're going to be heard and delivered in a way that will do that transformational work. So just to clarify that last piece, so the transformational work that you're hoping to achieve and create that space, it will be delivered. It will be like landing with other people when it's needed, if you allow yourself to be in the space of appreciating the preparedness now. So being in preparation now by being present in the moment of that, of for you both, what's transforming and what's coming forth, like being fully aware. Imagine as if you were Yeah. Imagine as if you were standing in the center of what I'm seeing is kind of like a 360-degree film, like a theater. Thank you. Um, and that you can see all of the expressions and all of the changes that are happening for both of you from a perspective of being inside of it and unattached, inside of it and unattached to making it the thing that needs to happen or the timing that needs to happen a certain way, and pulling in for yourself those lessons from a place of calm, kind of like the calm inside the storm of awareness without judgment. So Cindy, that's what I'm getting. Okay, great. She said, got it. Yeah. So it's beautiful. The imagery I'm getting is really beautiful. So I think that this is important. I love these Fridays because I know that not only is that a message for Cindy, but it's a message for others who hear that message. And what I want to clarify is the sense that I get of the individual in the center is not of pushing or pressing, but acknowledging and honoring. And also this sense of awareness that I'm getting is that of like a seeping in of awareness, like a washing over of understanding of why things are the way they are and how they make a difference once they're recognized by the other. So the other at some point will be able to recognize their lesson, see their shift by hearing you share from that perspective. Great. I'm glad that makes sense, Cindy. That's a great question. And I think that that's an important piece for a lot of us to understand. When we put timing, it was like, I love this because the Oracle loves to give me a bad time too, just so you know. Okay. So any of you think I'm giving you a bad time with the Oracle, you work with me, she gives me a bad time too. Okay. On occasion. And timing is definitely one of those things. I'm a very type A person. And so whenever I find myself getting kind of wrapped up around the axle of this, I've set this deadline, I've made this commitment, I've talked about some arbitrary date on the horizon, and I find myself clinging to it, like really pushing myself up against the glass, like you said. That's when I hear that chuckle from her of like, yeah, it'll happen. Like the knowingness, right, of it being right to happen will happen. When we let go of that. Hey, Tamara, thanks for watching. So there's this place where when we put a deadline on it, so there's the juxtaposition of that, right? There's the, yes, we need to point ourselves some direction, right? We need to have something to focus on as humans because we are cyclical. Our entire lives are kind of built around a circadian rhythm, right? So there's an end and a beginning, and that part of our life is ingrained in us. And yet the universe evolves in multiple layers and quantum leaps and silent shifts in all of these magical, amazing ways. And you can make $1 million in a minute or $1 million in a lifetime, right? Like there's no difference. You still make the $1 million. And sometimes as humans, I get to be reminded myself that we get hung up on the when, right? When in the how. Those are the two ones, right, that are coming. Right. No need to cling. Oh, Lord Almighty. Right. And yes, I think that, one of the things about, like, if you follow human design, majority of the world is generators, I hear 75% or something like that. So that means like a lot of us are in this place of like always wanting to create, always pushing, always getting like checking things off the boxes. And so we can get really wrapped up around that. And this morning I shared a post about my son. Love him. And the fact that it took 10 years 10 years for me to become pregnant. And I'm not going to lie at all. Like, you can read the post. I got very emotional. In fact, I was crying while I was writing it because I remembered, how much during all of that time that I beat myself up around these weird time frames and dates. And I can't imagine not having him today. He's 8, almost 9. And yet, and he feels like he's always been meant to be here, like just as he is, which of course wouldn't have happened until he was ready to be here. And yet for those 10 years, there was all of this extra stuff around it that kept me stuck and wrapped around the axle, doing a lot of great things in my life otherwise. And still there's like this little thing, right? I'm not a little thing, but I mean, there's this part of it that was constantly nagging at me that I hadn't created or hadn't manifested. And so that point of understanding that there is a natural order of time where things happen, because that is a place where we have to step into knowing that it's not just about us, like the little us, that we are part of a bigger tapestry of life, the big life, L-I-F-E life, right? And so with that, all of the pieces have to fall into place, not just our own. Not only did we have to be ready as parents, I had to be ready to be a mother. My son had to be ready to be born. Like, all of those pieces have to call themselves into activity and action, and then they fall together. And somehow there are places in our lives, I think, where we're okay with that. And in our businesses, we can forget, like we can get really in our head and forget that our businesses are extensions of our being. If you can hold the idea that the business you're in is an extension of who you be, who you are, if you're aligned with it and if you're doing your real work, then it has its own process. There's a part of it that the more you get to be who you really are, the more ease there is to bringing in and connecting with the opportunities and the people and the places where you're meant to do your work. It's a paradigm shift in a way. It's definitely a mindset shift. Yes, Cindy said, I feel like I don't have a deadline. The goal will take forever to achieve, but that's my impatience speaking. Yes, good point. The goal, when you have a goal, I spend a lot of time with my clients right up front when we work together one-on-one about goals and timelines and things like that. And the one thing I consistently remind them of is these are meant to give you a milestone marker down the road, right? So you're traveling, you're creating a roadmap for where you're going next with the vision of what you want to achieve, the goal at the end of that road line. There are multiple ways to get to the goal, and just sitting where you are is not going to get you there. So you do have to take some action. You do have to move. And so the mileposts, right, those mini goals in between, are best suited to be held in a way that says, look, it gets me up. It gets me moving that next mile. I went hiking when I was younger, accidentally. I say this because it's sort of true. My cousin said, hey, come with us this weekend. We're going camping. And we're taking a little hike. Was up this giant mountain, which I didn't realize. And so her ex-military boyfriend at the time was leading us up this mountain. And I was not prepared, right? Because I had no idea. I was just going to go for a camping trip, which I thought, maybe pull up to the lake, put out your stuff, hang out. And we were taking this little hike. And what happened was this was a massive hike, and we were camping at the top of the mountain. So there was no like pull up to the lake, drop anchor, put out your tent and have some hot dogs and around the campfire. It was, let's hike for an entire day up to this beautiful glacier lake at the top of a mountain. And so what I recognized as I was going through that process, in hindsight being what it is that I showed up with totally unclear expectations of what was happening. And then for him to motivate me, he kept telling me, like, it's like 2 more corners. It's 2 more. It's just over the mountain. And every time, by like the 5th time he told me it's just around the bend or just over the next hill, I lost it. I sat down. I had like a complete fit, wasn't moving. I was like, I can't do it anymore. And that happens. We get to a place in our lives where we're like, wait, I thought I was there already. And so the frustration comes with the expectation that we have set some sort of place that this is going to stop. We have decided from our singular view where the end really is. And I think that that's something that happens inside of us that shifts when we relax and know that ultimately there is an end, that ultimately the thing we're going to, we'll get to. And that comes from belief or faith or whatever you want to call it, that the thing that we are wanting, the thing that we're asking for is being asked of because it's ours. Which means we have to accept that if it really is ours, it will come because it's waiting for us to show up to meet it. Hey, Greg. Oh my gosh, I was just talking about you. And Daniel, nice to see you all. Oh my gosh, so briefly, hello. So there's that moment in that place where we can choose, right? So, i.e., when I was sitting on the side of that mountain and everybody was hiking and I just had a little bit of a fit. Okay, I had a huge fit. And I sat down on a log and said I wasn't going to go one more step. It was ridiculous. I was just having a huge fit. They dragged me out into the wilderness for nothing. And I realized, well, what were my options? Going back? I mean, I couldn't go back. I had driven with them and I had to go on. And he looked at me and said, it's going to be beautiful. When we get there, you're going to love it. And the truth of the matter is when I got there, it was incredible. It was gorgeous. I'd never seen anything like it. And, I think oftentimes we get not necessarily tunnel vision, but we get this sense that there's only one way. There's only one way, and we have it set in our mind that that's what it's going to look like, and that's what the road is going to look like. So there is this release, and there's also this co-creation that happens, which is I'm here looking at where I want to go because it's being called out from within me. Again, we go back to just having your sense of knowing what your purpose is and going, if this is mine to do, there is a way for it to happen. And so the hard things part sometimes is that hike up the mountain or that detour you took that felt like it wasn't meant to happen, but that gave you a vital piece of information or education that will help to bring you closer to fulfilling that purpose. And so all of these pieces are part of the journey. And yet, when we have hold hard to just a specific date or time or a specific way, the how, we limit and we make it harder on ourselves what that journey will feel like and how we will show up in it, right? We will limit how magnificent it really can be when we are doing our real work and showing up fully in our lives. And it often takes the hindsight to recognize all of the ways that the things that did pass until we got there were required, were even necessary for us to really appreciate and honor the end goal. And so that's, to Cindy's point about having a lot of things going on and still having a goal and wanting to set timelines and deadlines. My point has always been with my clients over the last 25 years, I say this over and over and over again, which is it's great. It's important to have a focus, but to hold these goals and intentions like a feather in the palm of your hand, right? To know that at some point they're going to lift off and kind of have their own life. And you get to go along for that journey. And that the wayposts we're setting along the way are there to get us up and get us moving. And if we are staying present through the process, then other inspirations, other ideas, other opportunities present themselves to make the way clearer. And in order to see the clearness or the clarity, we sometimes have to let go of what we're clinging to as the only way or the only time that it will be all right. And as I mentioned about my own son and the journey I went through for the 10 years to try to have him, during those 10 years, every supposed failure brought me one step closer to recognizing how truly committed I was to being a mother in the way that I now get to show up and create a whole life around being present with him, right? Because part of what happened before he was born was my recognition that I absolutely wanted to live a life where I could create my own schedule. I could live a life that allowed us to take him across the world as part of what I do. And we have, my son's been to Mexico, to Thailand, to Costa Rica, to Italy, to Europe. He's been across the globe and he's 8. And I know that all of that time it took to get to the point where we were blessed to have him, all of that was being born, all of that was being germinated so that the life that we have together now is part of all of that. Hey, Mercy, good to see you. Yes, the Oracle. Yes, exactly. So again, if you're here and you're watching right now and you have a question, like Cindy, you can ask it here in the comments and we'll tap into the Oracle to receive any insights or answers or guidance about what your next steps might be or what you would like some additional support around in regards to what you're doing in the world and how you can be more aligned with your purpose. Mercy said, like the Matrix. I always joke about that because, hey, Adrian, whee, nice to see you. That, when the Matrix came out and people looked at me while I was watching the Matrix, they're like, hey, you look a lot like the woman in the Matrix. I'm like, yes, the Oracle and the Matrix and I do look very similar. And I always joke that I was the Oracle first because I was the Oracle in high school. And that was a few years ago. And yes, so the idea that we can do hard things and that those hard things are part of the road toward the goal. And as I was saying to Cindy, that when you look at your goals and you find yourself being frustrated about timing, to loosen your grip a bit and ask a bigger question, which really is this mine to do? Is this mine? Because if it's yours, the time will be right when it's right. If it's yours to do, the people will show up that need it from you when the time is right. And anything that's happening in the midst of that, as we're talking about that vision of standing inside of like a 360-degree theater, like all those moments that are happening, there's parts of that you can acknowledge and embody, because when you know them for what they are, they're part of that message you're sending out to the world. And that's the one that somebody else is waiting to receive. I got people thinking I'm Tracy. What's her face from Rent? I've never seen Rent, Adrian. I'm curious. I'll have to go look that up now. And I think that being clear about your purpose, being clear about where you're going in your goals, that's just foundational, right? That's like the part you can do. That's your part to do. And leaving space for the rest of it to marinate and grow and sprout opportunities and connections. That's almost the hardest part, honestly. Especially as we were talking about a moment ago, if you're a generator, and if you want to know about that, go check out Human Design. But if you're a generator, which apparently most people are, you can easily get caught up in the do, right? Like I have to do this, I have to do that, I have to do this to make something happen. And yet ultimately, if it's yours, it will happen. If it's yours to do or for you to have, it will be. And so practicing, releasing the desire to make it so in a certain way in a certain time, and instead spending your energy and effort in understanding how you can open to it and be faithful, right? To take the leap of faith and be in belief that it will be so. Like that's your job. It's not your job to figure out the how. And I know many of you have probably heard that before. And it's like, well, yes, but, right? And so I think the yes, but says, I know that, and I still want to do something. So it's like, if you still want to do something, then the thing to do is to practice having faith that it will be. Been feeling a pull to jump back into, Adrian, been feeling a pull to jump back into finishing the 2 different music projects. Albums I was working on 8 to 10 years ago, and I don't know if there is really flow there. And if there is, how can I best find the other people to help me get it done? And it isn't really where I should be putting my energy now, or should I keep my focus more on being creative to business projects? I'm going to tell you, I got a quick flash of the music projects don't have energy. I'm not seeing any energy there. Yeah. So it's interesting. I just got this weird like half shift, which usually if I get a full yes, it's like a full flush. So I'm testing into that. So it's kind of got a 2-part question. Let's go back to that. Okay, so finishing 2 different music projects, albums I was working on 8 to 10 years ago. So Adrian, if you're here, what's the like? There's 2 projects music-wise. The album thing is like it's not getting any energy, but something there is more on being creative to business projects. Are there 2 albums or 2 different kind of music projects? Can you clarify that? Because I feel like there's something about the creative piece, but not the album. So the album just I get nothing. And usually if I get nothing, it's not necessarily a no, but it's definitely a not now, as far as like where you're gonna put your energy. And the other part feels like there's still something creative there for you to do. So I'm not sure if you're still here, Adrian, but if you are, or you want to come back and answer that question, watch the replay and answer that. There is something creative. It's not the album, and may still be music, but it's definitely not the album. So I don't know. She keeps saying no to the album, yes to creative. And I don't know, you mentioned something about 2 things. So if you get this message, and I know there's a little delay, come back and answer that. Oh, she's here. Great. One project is my original songs, and the other project is me doing cover tunes, but I brought my own vibe too. Maybe I release them into the world in a different way. Interesting. It's a layered question, so the answer is also layered. So the first part of this answer I'm getting is whatever you do, you need to do your own thing. I don't think the cover band piece feels like a energetically good area flow. There's no flow there. Before you do your own before you do your own music, make sure it's weird. Make sure that you have you don't care. Like there's some piece of it still for you, I think there's still some piece of that that's showing up, like it's underneath, it's a foundational piece. So it's like whether you, I won't say you don't care. Um, it's clean. So it needs to be clean. So if you're going to deliver your own music, be in a place where you can do it purely, cleanly, without any attachment. And it feels more about expression, pure expression, than money motivated. So that's what I get for that. Thank you for clarifying that, because that was a good question, and it was kind of murky. So that, I think that explains it. Hopefully that explains it for you. Yeah. So definitely got more for your own expression as an expression, and with like completely clear, what I like to call free and untied of any sort of output. Like it's just to do it. Great. Make it clean, pure, and clean, no attachment. Okay, great. Yeah. So hopefully that makes sense to you when you hear that. Like there's something in there. Like if you're gonna do it, like, and have fun, have lots of fun doing it. So stay in that place. Great. Thank you so much. Some great questions today, guys. And I always like to remind everyone that, when the Oracle answers for one person that comes in brave and courageous and asks it live, first of all, I want to give both Adrienne and Cindy kudos for showing up and being honest and open to share their questions. It's not easy for us to ask for help as humans either. So yeah, you're welcome. Thank you so much for asking the question. So this happens every first Friday of the month. And yet I know that in between times, people still need help to get clear and move forward and understand what the roadmap to their success would look like. So if you are in the place of wanting to ask questions or looking for what your next step is in regards to what's going on in the world today, and you feel like you're ready to take another level, another step forward in getting closer to alignment with your purpose and what that looks like as far as how you can bring that purpose to prosperity, please reach out. Whether you comment below or DM me, don't sit on it. That's my suggestion. Don't wait. There is no need to wait to begin. And so whether or not, as Cindy was saying, it's taking time to get there, it will only take more time the longer you wait. It will only take more time to get to that goal, whether or not that's a windy road, the longer you wait to start. And if you're really ready to start and you've felt like over the last few months, this thing is growing inside of you to be born and be developed and get out into the world and really be shared, then I encourage you to reach out and ask for help. Ask for a way forward, the next step, whatever that looks like, and get the support you need. Because even if it feels hard to start, having help, having support, having someone who's done hard things on your side can make that road easier. It can help you to find that your own purpose is leaving you clues right now. It's asking for you to show up and do the work. And that doesn't mean you have to do it alone. So thank you all for watching. Thanks for being here today to play in the field of creativity and insight and guidance from the Oracle. Thank you for everyone who is taking the hard road of honestly seeking and following their purpose. I know it's not always easy, but it is absolutely worth it. And more importantly than anything, the universe is exactly waiting for you to do just that, so that we can bring more joy, more prosperity, more expansiveness, expression, and release into this world, so that the world can evolve and grow and prosper. So thank you so much for watching. If you have questions again that you didn't get answered while I was here live, feel free to post your questions in the comments throughout the day. And by the end of the night, I will get back to them. So if you have gotten your question answered, Thank you again for showing up and asking. If you haven't or you're watching the replay, feel free to post your questions below and we will get back to you today. All right. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day. We'll see you next time. I'm Lia Dunlap, Oracle on Purpose, and this has been